All right, so this week in Pax Day, we got the most significant update to combat that Pax Day has ever seen. Over 6 months of developer work has gone into this update, and this week we got the spotlight on new RPG systems and combat. It's what everyone has been waiting for. I know many of the previous commenters on my other videos have been profusely commenting about all of the problems with combat. This is the developer response to it. It's been 6 months in the making. Have they changed enough, or have they changed too much? That is what we're going to be talking about. So hello and welcome back, all of you amazingly professional consumers of Pax Day and Pax Day related content out there. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another episode of the PAX Friday Review, the show where we talk about the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has dropped for Pax Day over the last week. Now, new and exciting information in this part is just completely underrated because the new RPG system that is coming to Pax Day, including the combat and all the details with how armor and weapons are going to work, is going to intrinsically change the way that we play Pax Day, in my opinion. It's going to introduce roles that actually mean something in game. It's going to change how we fight in combat and against enemies. And we even got a small snapshot of what changes are coming to crafting this week. So we need to go ahead and get into it because this video is going to be far too long. If you haven't done so already, please do hit that like button, subscribe, and share with any of your friends who maybe they played Pax Day at one point and walked away from it because combat just wasn't there. This is the update for them. This is the update that they want to hear about, so go ahead and share it. Also, special shout out to all of our channel members, for all of you who are out there supporting the channel monetarily. I truly do appreciate it. And yeah, let's go ahead and get over to playpaxday.com to talk about this new RPG system spotlight. I'll see you over there. All right, and here we are, playpaxday.com, and the first thing we are greeted by is an incredible screenshot with what looks to be a new set of armor or just a reskinned version of Belmael's robe and the new cleric staff that we are getting in game. We are going to talk about that in this post, but we're just going to attack this thing from the top and keep going down. There's a lot to cover. So first and foremost, with the coming of verse 3, which has officially been titled The Path of the Adventurer, they are going to be making the most substantial changes to RPG combat mechanics in the game that they have made to date. For those of you wondering, the combat improvements that have already happened, specifically with blocking and how all of that has worked and the interrupts and being able to break your spell casting, all of those changes are staying in the game. This is a build on top of those things, and it is changing how everything works from almost the ground up. This is my own opinion. I'm sure I'm going to hear it in the comments regardless, but I am incredibly hyped over this update. I'm going to try and keep it as monotone as I can, but I have definitely drank the tea on this, and I am all on board for the changes that are coming, but I will do my best to maintain a level-headedness while going through all of it. So the reason behind the changes, first and foremost, let's be real, all of y'all are wearing plate armor right now. If you're in game and you're playing, chances are you're wearing plate mail. Chances are you're wearing ruler's pauldrons. Chances are you are just walking around with a giant maul of a Mace of Dark Command, and you're just wrecking face if you've been playing the game up until this point. That is pretty much it. That's what players are running. That's not a really good MMO or RPG system. You want to see variability. You want to see diversity in the types of gear that people are bringing and the types of roles that they are fulfilling. So that is what they're trying to do here. Create distinct combat roles like tank, healer, and DPS without forcing rigid builds. Pax Dei is a classless system. You will never have classes in Pax Dei. There is no such thing as a class in Pax Dei. There are roles that you can fulfill, but hybrid builds are still going to remain viable, especially with mixed armor and gear synergies. And you'll be able to identify on the battlefield how you want to, which means this is great for people who like not building meta. Making gear matter is also important. So the armor and weapons that you're taking, as well as the spells, will now contribute even more significantly to your strategy and effectiveness. They are looking to create webs of how players are interacting, not just on the individual player level, but as a team. So they are going to be coordinating their builds together to create synergies, which give them more adaptability, more damage, more healing, more whatever their desired outcome is. This is going to give players more control through the combat system, the improved UI, and now a shared resource called Spirit. I do find it interesting that it's called Spirit. There's a couple of lore reasons behind Spirit as well, but I believe you can think of Spirit as almost a mana pool. This is different from Stamina as well. In addition to that, they're trying to align progression with playstyles. So the more of a piece of gear you are playing with, the more your skill of that gear in that particular slot that you're going to get, and that will allow you access to different abilities as you level up. With that, item power is now a thing. Your item power is probably going to go into the crafting dynamics that are going to be touched on next week and have already been confirmed, but we do have a taste of what item power is going to do, and it makes your gear scaling visible, meaningful, and also skill dependent. So what's going on in the combat system? It's deeper, smarter, and more purposeful. So item power and progression, every weapon and armor piece is now going to have something called item power or an item power score. And what this is going to do is it's going to scale with both the gear quality and your combat skill level. And in addition, armor skills are also getting introduced with this. So you will be able to level up your specific armor piece at the armor level. So is it heavy? Is it medium? Is it light? And you'll be able to level those up at the specific gear slots level. These are used to determine your effectiveness with specific armor types. So high tier gear is going to require a higher corresponding skill to use. This is a callback all the way to some of the initial developer interviews where they said, yeah, technically, if you have a new member join your clan and you give them the best armor in the game, they're going to be able to use it, like it'll be equipped, but the skill level will not be there for them to actually utilize the spells or utilize the gear to its effectiveness. It's basically like giving someone a giant tank and not telling them how to drive it or how to move the turret or load it or shoot it for that matter. It's the same exact thing here, but with maybe a tank and plate armor without a cannon, but maybe a big sword instead. Then we also got a picture of what the new weapon UI is going to look like. And you can see here, it says requires skill hand spears 20, and then item power is being posted right here. And then it also tells you the minimum skill level of 20. I do wonder if requires skill hand spears 20 and minimum skill 20 is a little bit redundant there. Who knows? But then we can also see our first glimpse at the 3 weapon abilities that are coming for every weapon. And these are going to be different on the weapon level, not just is it a wrought iron hand spear, but depending on the quality of the spear, which at this point in time, I do believe it is the color of these pips. So you have the tier of the spear, which is the number of pips, and then the color of the pips, which are the quality or the grade of the weapon. That is where that is coming from. These abilities can change based on that. So combat XP is now gained from killing enemies. It's contributed directly to leveling up a specific weapon and armor skill. The harder the enemy, the more XP you gain. Party members in proximity will share your XP, especially when fighting veteran enemies, those marked with a skull. Those are the elite mobs, I'm pretty sure, in the current verse. There's also going to be, and this is a very controversial one. This is a controversial one. It is fewer equipment slots, more impact. So in the current verse, we have the under chest, the over chest, and then your hauberk, or the thing that you can wear over your chest plate. Now we only have the chest. You no longer have pauldrons. Pauldrons are gone as well. And you no longer have the under leg piece either. You just have leg instead. So you can see the gear slot. If I can zoom in here, you can see that there's only 4. Then you also do have van braces and gloves, as well as a cape slot. And then all of the jewelry does seem to have remained, which I find interesting because the jewelry system hasn't been touched, or it's rumored to not be touched yet in verse 3. So the core gear pieces are head, chest, legs, and feet. And if anyone is wondering why this restriction happened, think of it in a way where if there are so many parameters in the amount of customization, when you're trying to balance that, if you have 9 pieces, then the permutations of those 9 pieces gets unwieldy really, really quickly. So for the purposes of being able to balance and being able to modify all of these things, the armor has to be put into 4 different gear slots, plus the secondary ones like van braces, gloves, capes, and then all of your various jewelries. Now, this doesn't mean that the ability to customize your armor is going away. We know that the gear customization system is coming, but I know a lot of people were kind of sad because they wanted to run around in their ruler's pauldrons while also wearing anything from a dress all the way to plate armor. And while that level of customization is something that's good, they are looking to add more cosmetic sets to the game, which basically just provide no actual armor. They're not going to be skins that go over your current gear. They want that gear to look the way that it is. So you would replace your current gear with these cosmetic gear sets as well. But they are ways for you to customize. I think there's even potential where when you're going into the crafting system, you'll be able to modify what the pauldrons look like based on what you're putting into that armor crafting. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait till next week's crafting detail to really spotlight it. But nevertheless, heavy armor, what are these different classes of gear that we're getting, and how are they going to affect things? We have heavy armor, which has high physical resistance, increased threat generation, bonuses to blocking, crowd control effectiveness and resistance, tanking, survivability, and crowd control related spells. Medium armor, on the flip side, is balanced in terms of survivability and damage. They are more frontline DPS and frontline utility spells, whereas light armor clothing has the weakest amount of defense, strongest damage and healing done, and spells for healers and spellcasters. So again, the core pieces are head, chest, leg, and feet, and you will be able to mix the various classes of heavy, medium, and light armor. For those of you who have played games like New World, I do think that this is kind of the space that it's in. It does seem like a lot of people called for New World-like gearing, and it seems like there has been a move towards that in a way as well. Now, we do have a picture here of a piece of armor, and you can see even here that there are different colors to the pips. You have the gloves here, which are yellow. Meanwhile, there are other pieces of the 3-pip gear that is green. And I do believe that this is corresponding to a higher quality level or rarity level. Green is better than yellow, is what I would expect. But we can also see on this a bunch of statistics going from item power and the heavy torso skill, which is required at level 20. Your item power is at 450, And then this generates aggro. It has a bunch of statistics going from aggro, CC effectiveness, CC resistance, which I do think was mental and mental resistance previously, or it was intended to be that. Now these have kind of changed a bit. And then we also have an increase to healing received and physical defense as well. And then we get energy, which is stamina, max health, and again, the minimum skill is listed. And then on the armor, so base armor, all armor types, all everything is going to have spells associated with it or skills associated with it. So this is, just one of many armor pieces, and you will be able to get skills from them regardless. Now, obviously, rare pieces or better pieces of armor are going to have better types of magic associated with them. But nevertheless, this is how it's ending up. And you can see down here that there are also 3 different parameters: health, stamina, and energy. I believe energy is the spirit attribute, while stamina is still the stamina attribute. We did have confirmation from the developers. Stamina is still going to be used for things like attacking and blocking and gathering, whereas energy is going to be used for spell casting and other things. The way to think about it is stamina regens faster, but has a smaller pool of stamina, whereas energy has a large pool, but it regenerates slower. So these are 2 different pools that you'll have to utilize in different ways for that. It's also worth noting that we can see a change in UI up here for the journal. Looks like there's been a couple more improvements. You also have the gold and the grace that's being listed up top, which is quite interesting because we also have the gold down here. So it makes you wonder, is gold something that's going to be able to be stored on an account-wide basis? And maybe this is an account-wide amount of gold storage. Either way, let's continue on. So then they give us some examples of different spells that exist on armor. So for heavy armor, if you have it on the head, you can taunts enemies, temporarily forcing them to attack you. Additionally, the target's damage is reduced by 25% for 4 seconds. So if you have that high DPS enemy, you'll be able to reduce their damage for 25 seconds. On the chest, there's this new spell, Iron Root Grasp. While channeling, the caster becomes immobile, entering a trance-like state, but enemies within range are chained to the ground. So to me, this almost sounds like a different version of Haunting Memories, where it's a area of effect, but the difference is that the user has to continue channeling. They don't just get a get out of jail free card. And then also Windlash, so this is on chest as well. Pull an enemy towards you and chain them in place for 2 seconds. So this is a pull and then a root. Then we have on medium armor, on the chest, you have Ambush. You become invisible and gain empowered attacks while hidden. So this invisibility, from what I've read, is only going to last a couple of seconds, probably up to 10. But then the cooldown timer is going to be closer to a minute. It's going to be a longer cooldown timer. And then we also have on the head, Jester's Flask. Throw a flask that splashes on impact, reducing the movement speed of affected enemies by 40% and reducing their physical damage dealt by 12%. Lasts for 10 seconds. So longer lasting, ranged AoE attack that you get to use with your medium armor. That actually sounds like a pretty cool crowd control ability. And then we also have light armor on chest. My favorite spell, this is my favorite spell that I've seen so far on the chest, Divine Shield. For the next 4 seconds, reflect all melee damage taken back to the attacker and also heal yourself for the same amount. I want this. Then we also have Spirit Stride, increase movement speed by 20% and regenerate 5.9 spirit per second for the next 7 seconds. So this one allows you to move faster and you're getting spirit back. What is interesting, and again, what we're pretty sure, energy is spirit, stamina is stamina. So you're regenerating spirit even though you're moving faster. You're not regenerating stamina and moving faster. This isn't like Oriel's shoes. Weapons, and they're 3 specials per weapon. So all weapons are now granting 3 unique special attacks, and there are no more generic final hit bonuses. So you just have the 3 or 4 hit weapon cycle, and there isn't a predefined at the end of the cycle, you have a heavy hit. now you get to choose where those heavy hits come in from, and you have a variety of them that you can choose from. So you have 3 different weapon skills that you do get, and you can see them for this, particularly the Great Maul. You have Vexing Sweep, Overhead Slam, and Tempest Command, and you can see that they're assigned. In this case, I feel like this is a southpaw here, AR and F. I don't know why A would be one of the keys there, but you'll be able to change your key presses as well. And it's also worth noting here that this chest piece is the combination of several different things. So we have the leather jerkin here, plus a gambeson underneath it, plus the pauldrons. That is all just the single chest piece. So something to note there. And again, we will be able to customize these in the future, anything from patterns to the dye that's on them and all of that. These are all changes that are going to be coming in the future. I don't think it's confirmed to be on release for verse 3. Then we have examples of weapon abilities. So for the mace, you have things like Earthquake, Smash Down violently, fracturing the ground beneath you. The impact deals 403 damage and weakens enemies, reducing their damage dealt by 12.5% for 8 seconds. One thing that's also worth noting is damage and player health are getting a massive rework in terms of the numbers and the amount of numbers that we're using. You can see here the player has 1,740 health, as opposed to right now, most players are going to have around 300 health. So the health has been rescaled. So when it says 403 damage, we don't really know how big of an impact or how much damage that is, but it does sound like it does a weaken, and it also is going to do a decent amount of AoE damage. But then we have the Great Mauls with Tempest Command, become the Eye of the Storm, command violent winds to spiral around you, pulling nearby enemies into your reach. Enemies are then chained for 2 seconds upon landing. So this one is pretty cool. You can see the Tempest Command ability right here, and it's the F ability. I don't know if the amount that you unlock or the skill level that you unlock these abilities at, like how high your skill level needs to be, or if these slots are going to be changeable, but it does look like at least the Tempest Command might be the final in the chain of abilities that you can unlock with your weapon. And currently weapon skills, while they are being reset, I do believe we have gotten confirmation that the skill level max is still level 40 for all of them. Next, we have Great Axe, which has Sunder and Vicious Sweep. So Sunder is an overhead chop that reduces the target's physical defense with a stacking armor shred. And then Vicious Sweep, you swing in a broad arc, dealing damage, and all enemies struck gain armor shred charges equal to the highest stat count among targets hit. So basically you're sundering, and then you do a Vicious Sweep where whoever has the highest amount of sunders, you'll put sunders of that amount on everyone that gets hit. And then we have the Sword, Interrupt, a kick that interrupts spellcasting and silences the caster if successful. So this one's pretty cool. I like the idea of having interrupts. Now, the only downside here is, will we be able to also interrupt melee abilities? That's yet to be seen. I definitely would love it if kick also was a knockdown, or if they have a knockdown kick in the future, just because we all want to do that nice, this is Sparta kick. Then Greatsword, Guard Breaker. Perform a heavy rising slash that breaks through blocks, dealing 348 damage. Successfully breaking a block briefly stuns the enemy. This is my new love. I love counterplay like this, being able to break blocks and stun and punish players for blocking when they shouldn't be. It's basically guaranteeing that you get free damage on them, and there's other counterplays that they have to do. For example, what I just mentioned with the interrupt being able to interrupt spell casting and silencing the caster, this interrupt would be a really awesome counter to the Greatsword, where you can interrupt the Greatsword user, and that's your only option, because if you don't interrupt the Greatsword user and you try and block it, you're going to take the 348 damage and you're going to be stunned, as opposed to just not blocking and taking the 348 damage and not being stunned. You could just interrupt the player in their attack animation, and then you don't have to take the damage and you don't have to take the stun. That would be super cool. Then we also get a look at the staves, which are a better tool for healing. So there are 3 new healing staves that are being added, each with a full kit of healing spells, bringing dedicated healing rolls to dungeon groups. And we get 2 pictures of these staves as well, the cleric staff and the sylvan staff. We did get confirmation that we are getting 2 types of cleric staffs and 1 type of sylvan staff. So take that with what it is, but this is also really, really cool. So in terms of the attuned sylvan staff 3 here, we have regrowth, overgrowth, and blood-fed grove. We don't know what blood-fed grove does, but we do know what regrowth and overgrowth does. Regrowth, you're putting stacks of regrowth on an ally, giving them a heal over time for a certain amount of time. And then after you get 3 stacks put on them, the next stack will overflow, giving a burst of health and removing all of the stacks. Meanwhile, overgrowth heals allies within a 7 meters based on the number of regrowth stacks on them. So if you have someone with 4 regrowth stacks or 3 regrowth stacks on them, you'll be able to burst heal them for quite a lot. Now, what I do find interesting here is we go 111, 137, 130. We actually go down in number. I don't know why that is. So I don't know if that's a typo or not, but I found that one as an interesting one. And then for the clerical staff, so this one, Divine Missive, fires a projectile that splashes for 202 health to all allies within 4 meters, and Divine Intervention, heal a target for below 40% health for 380, otherwise heal for 175. So it seems like the cleric staves are more positioned towards burst healing, whereas sylvan staves are more of the heal over time. And then they elaborate a little bit on the new resource. So all of these spell abilities consume spirit, which is the new resource shared across melee and magic users, adding an extra layer of timing and choice. So melee and magic users, that means all of the abilities and spells that exist are going to consume this spirit. Meanwhile, you're blocking, you don't have to consider what we have the problem of right now, where if you use too many of your abilities or you're blocking too much, you can't use your skills or spells because you've blocked too much and your stamina's low. Now you have to manage your stamina for blocking and doing all of those types of activities. And then spirit is the other pool of resources that you can use for spells and special abilities. Then they also mention improved dungeon experiences. So they have completely rebalanced the game with a specific focus on difficulty. Progression should feel smoother, and content they designed to be harder. For example, dungeons should be more challenging. They have improved AI behavior, so pathing and navigation is going to be better. You're not going to have teleporting NPCs around anymore. And this also means that there is going to be a fix for pathing. So you can't sit there and body block the Zebians anymore and act like you're the big kids on the block with only like 2 people in a dungeon, just body blocking the Zebian horde from attacking you because you're one guy on a corner. That is going to really improve the need for actual strategy and tactics in these dungeons. And you're going to start seeing a wider gap of players in terms of those who actually are playing the game as it's intended, with its roles and with actual strategies for how to handle the dungeons, versus players who are cheesing the crap out of it and just kind of, bugging the Zebians out so they can get free attacks perpetually. This also is going to be a great time for it to be added, because you're not just left clicking anymore. You have 3 different abilities on your weapon. You have 4 different abilities from all of your spells. This is going to be a huge, huge thing. So UI and input updates. So they have made input and interface improvements to combat, including a new default keyboard layout for all the 7 abilities. So this is also something of note. We are going from 8 spells potentially all the way down to 7. So they are reducing the number of spells that we have access to by 1. We're losing a little bit here, but that just means spells are becoming more important. And then the HUD update to display your spirit pool, and the new party targeting and self-casting options. So this is actually a really big opportunity. Self-targeting has been really difficult, and they're improving the party targeting, which has been a much requested feature. It's only going to be better now that we have reasons to target other players with better healing and all of that as well. So what things are coming next? So these changes aren't just about the now, they're laying the groundwork for what is going to be coming. And by coming, we think that it's either next week or the week after that. Most likely next week, we're going to be getting a in-depth deep dive into crafting. And this system is adding into the crafting system where there's a better gear identity that's being tied. So the better you are at crafting, the better quality you're going to be getting with crafting, potentially the better crafting materials you're putting in, you're going to be getting better outputs as well. And the types of spells and abilities that you get access to from those are going to be based off of the crafting. Maybe there's a bit of randomness that'll get introduced at some point. But then nevertheless, we also get richer loot tables and smarter item distribution. Now this smarter item distribution, I'm pretty sure what that means is we're not going to be getting as much lard from Zebians randomly, that we'll be getting better loot, smarter loot from dungeons. One of the most disappointing things is when you go into a temple, so the highest, most difficult dungeon that you can be in game right now, and you clear it out and 99% of your inventory is just being taken and thrown onto the ground because you don't need any of those crafting materials. All you need is the gold, the tattered, and the crimson, and everything else, and maybe some of the primary relics, and everything else can just be thrown to the ground. This hopefully means that there will be a better distribution of all of those different resources and a smarter distribution of them, but then also better build diversity. So dungeon comp is going to be a thing that players are going to start talking about. Meta builds might start emerging. Best in slot is going to be a question that players are going to start arguing about from now till the end of time. And these are all improvements that are incredibly good for Pax Dei and for the game. Other things that were mentioned in the Discord, but not mentioned here, buffs are changing. At most, buffs are going to last like 10 or 20 seconds. We are not going to have the hour-long buffs that we have become accustomed to in game. Those are going away. Maybe they're getting replaced by something at some point. I even mentioned to the devs, like, I liked how entertainers worked in Star Wars Galaxies. Are we going to get something like that back in the game? They said maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Other things that they mentioned, they are looking into dodge and dodge mechanics. However, there is a lot of considerations that need to be had in terms of with latency for the game, as well as things becoming more dependent on individual player skill than group composition. And when you have the dodge ability in game, it's really just whether or not you're good at dodging, not whether or not you're good at playing with your team anymore, because if you're good at dodging, you won't take damage. So they are playing with it, but nothing there. And then in terms of bows are getting a significant update in the future. They are not mentioned here because they are not a part of this specific update. Bows are going to be getting love in the future. That has been confirmed time and time again by the developers. Just know that that is coming. So this is the spotlight for today. I know that's a lot. I know that there's also a lot to kind of pick apart. Even in the pictures that we see here, there's all these new spells that are here that I'm not even going to attempt to make a guess at what they are. I would love to hear what you all think the coolest spell might be in the game so far. I think the one that I'm on for is this Divine Shield, as well as the Guard Breaker for the Greatsword. Both of these seem like my kind of game. I'm very excited about it. But then also we got these kite shields coming back. Hopefully that means we'll be able to get the clan emblems on them as well. And then obviously now it looks like we're getting different crafting tiers as well as quality levels. And we'll learn more about that in next week's Spotlight, which is supposed to be crafting. Hopefully you enjoyed all of this. This is the biggest combat update that Pax Dei has ever had. 6 months of work from the developers. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, whether or not you think this was changing too much with the reduction in the number of armor slots, or still changing too little and you'd rather they just completely scrap the system as a whole. Again, super special thanks to all of our channel members. Thank you for helping us with the monetarily supporting the channel. If you do like this video and you enjoyed it, please do leave a like, subscribe so you can be notified whenever we come out with new content, and share this video with any of your friends. Also, super special shout out before we end the video. We have a State of the City for the Golden City that is coming out at around the same time. It is linked down below in our Golden City Pax Dei YouTube channel. It is 20 minutes of just straight pomp and circumstance. If you love that kind of thing and you want to learn more about what I'm doing in game with all of the players of the Golden Company, that's a good place to start. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And until next time, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.